Hello everyone, SpongeStur here, and it's about time I did a normal length review. The last one was in April of last year. Although, I'm not gonna lie, that actually seems more recent than it should. If you've been following my channel, you might have noticed that I've reviewed this episode before as a part of QuickToons, and if you've seen that review, you would know that I hate this episode. So why would I re-review an episode that I already know I don't like? Well, like I said in that review, there is a lot wrong with this episode. So much so that it would be nearly impossible to cover it all in 5 minutes or less. This episode was so bad that I had to go back to my long scripted review format. That's impressive. So, without further ado, let's unravel the dark void that is Fungus Among Us. And no, I'm not doing any Among Us jokes. Why would you expect that? The episode begins pretty normal. Gary wakes up SpongeBob and wants to eat breakfast. Okay, that's simple enough. But then SpongeBob gives Gary organic snail food that he doesn't like, causing Gary to seek a mysterious green substance on the ground. Gary tries to eat it, but SpongeBob won't let him and forces him to eat the organic food. Okay, here's the first problem. SpongeBob is pretty unreasonable here. I get that he doesn't want his snail to eat something off the ground, but why make him eat something that he doesn't like? Between this and a pal for Gary, SpongeBob isn't a very good pet owner. And the problem with both episodes is that if you're going to do this, at least make it funny or self-aware. This is just SpongeBob being unreasonable to his pet. If I was Gary, I would feel the same way. SpongeBob tries to clean off the fungus, but it won't come off. Then Patrick enters the house for whatever reason and notices there's something weird on SpongeBob's head. And then Patrick gives him the amazing advice, "Scratch it like there's no tomorrow!" What, did you expect him to give good advice? He's Patrick, of course he's going to give the worst advice known to man. By the way, I'm gonna talk about Patrick a lot more later on, because I have a lot more to say about him, and it might surprise you. SpongeBob tries pimple cream after scratching doesn't work, can't imagine why, but of course pimple cream doesn't work and it's still itchy. So far, this episode isn't terrible, but it's not very funny. I haven't laughed at a joke yet, and that's pretty bad for SpongeBob standards. I'm sure you can find SpongeBob scratching like crazy funny, but it's not to me, it's just kinda basic. It doesn't seem like the writers are telling a joke, it's just them continuing the story. But like I say, in multiple SpongeBob reviews, you have to focus on both the comedy and the story. If you're missing one or both, it's not a good episode. It's incomplete, it's not going up against good episodes of this show. SpongeBob scratching isn't enough. But you've heard me talk about this a bunch of different times, so let's just get to the Krusty Krab. Of course, at the Krusty Krab, SpongeBob is still having problems with the ick. He tries 2 more things that don't work until Squidward catches him scratching himself. It also should be noted that SpongeBob scratching himself is kind of unpleasant. For the writers to home in on this point for so long is very jarring. This is an issue that a lot of people have with modern SpongeBob, but these episodes rely heavily on uncomfort. And that's the opposite reaction you want your audience to have. Modern SpongeBob defenders love to say the show always had gross content, and while that is true, they were able to mix the gross content with humor. Pie Guy Rules already said this, but SpongeBob isn't some experimental show on Adult Swim. It's a comedy show on Nickelodeon. If the writers want to tell a crazy story about a fungus infecting everyone in town, do that somewhere else, not on SpongeBob. And it actually gets worse from here, because then Squidward calls the SWAT team on SpongeBob, and then SpongeBob gets put in a cage, causing him to get quarantined. If the episode wasn't already uncomfortable, the episode already outdid itself. Because SpongeBob backing away looking very concerned gives an off-putting vibe. For the main character to feel this way, it doesn't make the episode that fun to watch. Again, this weird vibe the show has right now does not fit. The way SpongeBob asks Squidward to help him genuinely makes me concerned for him. And again, I cannot stress enough how much this scene is devoid of jokes. Everything here is played completely straight and nothing here is comedic. I could maybe forgive this nice if there was at least one joke shoehorned in, but they couldn't even do that. I get that a lot of these episodes were rushed to meet Nickelodeon's harsh deadlines, but this is ridiculous. At least in Are You Happy Now, there were attempts at jokes. Whether the jokes landed is up to debate, but they were still jokes. The show still tried to be itself. This isn't even trying to be SpongeBob. This is what made the episode irredeemable, because it can't even deliver the show's main focus. And just when you get optimistic and think the show might get better in the second half, I can absolutely tell you with confidence that it doesn't. But before we get to see SpongeBob quarantining, we see Squidward infect Old Man Jenkins with the ick. This is the prologue to something that we'll see later, but just note that this scene is also kind of disgusting. And now we see SpongeBob wake up to find out that he's been trapped in a bubble in his own home. Seeing SpongeBob breathing fungus air is just so sad. I get that SpongeBob kind of deserved it for not letting Gary eat the fungus, but Gary is also trapped here too, so it just seems so unnecessary for the episode to go this route. Why emphasize SpongeBob's misery this much? And the episode still isn't funny. There's not a single joke, and at this point, I'm repeating myself. What crowd is this for? Who would want to watch the main character suffer like this, especially in a kid's cartoon? But just when I would give up on this episode, Patrick reappears. Let me tell you, Patrick is the best part of the entire episode. And that's pretty much because he is the only thing in the episode that's somewhat comedic. At first, you might think he's only in the episode to mess everything up, but no. Yes, he's oblivious to what's going on, but him using spiky cleats out of nowhere is kind of funny. Patrick also challenges him to a pirate match, and then when he wins, he's so proud of himself. His gloating is honestly the highlight of this episode. Patrick is the real champion here. He's actually giving the episode the humor that it needed. He also helps the story progress. After he bursts SpongeBob's bubble, he blows him a mobile one. And this wasn't even some accident. He came up with this idea by himself. Yes, this leads to problems down the line, we'll get to that, but it's still an idea. Patrick actually tried to help SpongeBob. That's rare for this era of SpongeBob. Patrick actually prevents this episode from being one of the worst. I wish he was in more of this episode, honestly, because now SpongeBob wants to go back to the Krusty Krab, and it's all downhill from here. Remember when Squidward gave Old Man Jenkins the fungus, and did you enjoy it? No? Well, too bad, because there's more of it, and it's a lot worse. Squidward gets the ick all over the patties, he serves it to the customers, we see the customers take bites out of the patties, and it's all shoved between Squidward scratching himself like crazy. Not only is this one of the grossest scenes in the entire show, but it also makes no sense. How did no one notice there was something wrong with the patties? I could see this working if the ick was inside the patties, but it's literally on the bun. I get that it's a cartoon and that things sometimes don't make sense, but that doesn't apply to this. That argument can be used when the episode is self-aware of it being nonsensical. This just seems like the writers adding in nonsense to make the episode move forward. There's no hint of self-awareness in this scene, therefore it is inexcusable. Finally, Squidward realizes he gave the ick to so many people, causing everyone to be reasonably angry, even though it's not entirely reasonable because again, you should have noticed the ick. But then SpongeBob arrives and he looks terrible. Dare I say, disturbing. He even oozes out fungus from one of his pores. See what I mean now when I say that this is one of the most disgusting episodes of the series? And then this random snooty guy tries to get everyone to kill SpongeBob, which I assume because their goal isn't very clear here. And if there is a goal, it's very stupid because it clearly doesn't work. The bubble blocks SpongeBob, so I don't know why they keep trying it because it doesn't work. I mean, I know the Bikini Bottomites aren't the smartest people in the world, but this is ridiculous. But there are two other things that bug me about this scene. First of all, who is this snooty fish? Why is he the spokesperson for these fish out of nowhere? Is he the health inspector? Why does he get on Mr. Krabs' case so much about the fungus? I would understand if he appeared earlier in the episode or even earlier in the show, but as far as I can remember, this is his only appearance. Why does this scene focus so much on this character? And of course, it's his bright idea that caused SpongeBob's bubble to burst, getting the fungus all over the Krusty Krab. So he literally does nothing but make the episode worse. And the thing about it is that there's such an easy way to fix this. In the beginning of the episode, show Mr. Krabs talk about the health inspector showing up, and have that be the exposition for him appearing. But of course, they have to have a lazy way for the story to continue, so they did this instead of something that made sense. Second of all, SpongeBob's misery is still so unfitting. SpongeBob is crying while everyone in the Krusty Krab just wants to hurt him. Again, for the main character to be suffering like this makes this so uncomfortable to watch. What is this show right now? What am I watching? You know, when people say that the show nowadays is different from what it used to be, SpongeBob fans get really mad, but it's true. What about this screams classic SpongeBob? How is this on the same level as the most iconic moments in the series? And I know this is season 5 and it aired well over a decade ago, but it still represents how the show just feels like a shell of itself now. Or dare I say, a flanderized shell of itself. And luckily, there's not much left of this episode, so let's just get this over with. Gary arrives at the Krusty Krab, still looking for something to eat, and starts eating the ick off Mr. Krabs. I did think it was funny when Mr. Krabs initially thought it was Squidward tickling him. This joke and Patrick's appearance are what make the episode not all the way trash. This gives Mr. Krabs the idea to charge the customers to get de-icked by Gary. I don't have much to say about this final scene, however, I do want to point out how even though this episode is terrible, Mr. Krabs and Patrick not being the reason why the episode is terrible is very shocking. These are the two most hated characters in this era of SpongeBob, and they both have shockingly decent roles here. Mr. Krabs kinda serves as a father figure to SpongeBob here, which is more common in the first 3 seasons. He's the one that tells SpongeBob that it's okay for Gary to want to eat the fungus. And while it is greedy of Mr. Krabs to charge the customers to get clean, it is Mr. Krabs. He's going to do greedy things. Just like how it's okay for Patrick to be stupid sometimes, it just doesn't have to annoy the audience is all I'm asking for.
Let's just recap.
This episode is great! No, of course I'm kidding. The episode is very bad. It's awful because there are very few jokes, the usage of the fungus is unbelievably gross, and it's very uncomfortable at parts. This is probably the most uncomfortable I've ever felt watching an episode of SpongeBob. It fails in a way that isn't even laughably bad. It's just painful to watch all the way down. If Patrick wasn't here, this would probably be in the top 5 worst episodes of the show. Don't watch this if you want a fun episode of the show. Watch Chum Bucket Supreme instead. Overall score 2 out of 10. I'm a spongestur and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.